featured artist of Chant de la Sirene, the COVID duration issue.
Thanks, Laura. It's been a pleasure working with you. I'm going to do a share screen, a 2-minute PowerPoint now. Let's hope that it works. In March, at the beginning of the pandemic, an old friend of mine, a pulmonary doctor, was fighting for his life in a hospital with COVID. He was struggling with a severe cytokine storm and almost died. Fortunately, he survived. The first painting was my response. I realized I needed to externalize the enemy so I could get a picture of what we were up against. I began painting a pandemic diary series, a chronology of my reaction to the pandemic using ink and gouache. The circular shapes depict the virus, and each painting portrays a different aspect of the pandemic. It was a way to focus and structure my time during lockdown and to keep anxiety at bay. In mid-April, we left the city and rented a house in the country. The color palette is limited at this point to black ink and red or blue gouache. I tried to guide the paint as it quickly spreads through water. The painted eyes and tentacles are more controlled and added last. When the Black Lives Matter demonstrations occurred, I incorporated that into the series. Uprising. Lost Horizons refers to all that we have lost, and that will be the last in the series. The series is ongoing. Okay, thanks.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Tony, go ahead.
Lennox Raphael is a poet and multimedia artist. He is the author of the play Che and Blue Soap, musical direction by Archie Shepp. His Haitian earthquake essay was nominated as one of the best online essays in the United States. His work has appeared in numerous anthologies, including Amistad, edited by Ishmael Reed, and Natural Process. An original member of Umbra, Raphael has read widely in the United States, Brazil, and Europe. For many years, a busy New Yorker, Lennox has been living since 1993 in Denmark. Welcome, Lennox Raphael.
Welcome, and thanks for staying up for us, Lennox.
It's wonderful. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Everyone can hear him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then I will read a poem. Beast of Love. Night is dawn of the beast. The haunted jackal bites its flank. War erupts as blood disturbed, the agony displayed paints a song of depths of suffering and pain. I apologize, my soul, S-O-L-E, clings to traces of loneliness. Night is dawn of the beast. As I turn my eyes to the east, the jackal burns my candles at both ends, while the blood of passion fails to make amends for the bird's eye's view of contrition and dew, D-E-W. The white snow smile of the wandering child breaks out just in time. The jackal's shriek is an eagle's beak, and the doom of time pirouettes on a dime as I seek my calling in the jackal's mauling. Let's face it, I have been sentenced to prison for emotional crimes against women. The whip of love cracks at dawn, sunrise cold as brass to gold, Sometimes I'm allowed out for good behavior and decent lies. I visit scenes of the crime and drop in on old haunts. On these occasions, I wear the mufti of perfidy so as not to despoil infamies of pleasure. My feet as soft as her lips, and I treasure the sound of one hand clapping footsteps in her heart. As I tiptoe through corridors of pain and measure arcs of suffering, the baying of the hound. Night is dawn of the beast, my heart spread out is eagerly the feast. A table for two is the fabulous stew, and her lips are silver whips. In removing the stain, I feel the pain and forever, evermore, the gore of ecstasy. Night is dawn of the beast. I turn my face to the east. Goodbye, my darling beast. Goodbye, goodbye. Don't say I didn't try. Don't say we never cried. Don't say love is just another lie. Goodbye, my beast. Goodbye. Goodbye, my beast. Goodbye, goodbye. Kisses never lie. The longer we live, the more often we die. Goodbye, my beast. Goodbye. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I wonder if I might insert the short film that you did with Jesper and Doris Bloom, both of whom are also in our issue. Shall we watch it? It'll just take a couple minutes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, hold on. Let me grab it off the internet here. And this was performed by two of the artists in the issue, Lennox Raphael and Doris Bloom, correct?
Yes.
Yes, great, okay. Little video art. Made during the lockdown in Denmark, in Copenhagen.
I'm somewhat prepared. It's my pleasure now to introduce Janelle Poe, multidisciplinary artist, educator, scholar, and committed witness to a creative yet at times frantic social chaos in the making of literature and new awareness. Janelle Poe.
Hi, Janelle.
Hi, how are you all? Thank you for being here. That was so beautiful. I love the video. I love the work. It's an honor to be here. I'd like to share one of the poems that is in this journal. And the reason I'm picking this one and not my other one, which I usually do, is because there is so much of the constant conflict and critique, and I also want to dwell in a place of hope right now. So this image is actually, if I can get out of the chat, broccoli, roasted broccoli. So yeah, wait. Okay, so it's roasted broccoli on parchment paper, and that I placed on a mat, and then I wrote poetry on top of it. Now I'm not sure how I can get this to be full screen. Okay, but I encourage everyone to look around and see what's left behind. I found it very interesting that these animals were in the broccoli, and I have a feeling that it means they're in the soil, and so it just really reaffirms the cycle of life for me, and that we're all carrying so many traces of others, and these things are all here for us. So this poem was inspired by something Dr. Vanessa Valdez, who runs the Black Studies program at City College, said in a meeting that was convened to respond to racism in America as if it's something brand new. And someone asked her a question about the Black community being broken, and her response was, "We are not broken." And so I want to intercede and reaffirm that. So the poem's called We Intercedes. We are not, have never been broke in, fully taken out of place. Though limbs rented on the low, as laws, eyes penetrated, clavicles crushed, hearts stomped, pinned down, throats choked, hold so tight, roughed up for play, grab, home attacked, We becomes new when one considers blood, sweat, tears, dreams, nightmared, bones consumed. When one realizes we are all seeds, flowing, trees of eternal roots. Keep growing. We becomes new on these days as we rise up from Twin Lakes to Flatbush, Hollywood, Oakland to Gullah, Greenwood, Geneva to Paris, Puerto Rico, Pakistan, back to Accra, New Zealand, England. Stand up, ready, have always been steady, waiting for Black to come out. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle.
Yes, Nicole Peyrafit is a multidisciplinary artist born in the French Pyrenees. Recent presentations include the 11 Women of Spirit at Salon Zuricher, New York City, the 2017 multi-tier exhibition and live performance, Peyrafit, Joris, Domo Poetic Works at Simoncini Gallery, Luxembourg, featuring her longtime collaboration with poet and translator Pierre Joris. Peyrafit's action paintings have been performed in a range of international venues, and her website is www.nicolepeyrafit.com.
Thank you. Thank you, Janelle. So this is really amazing to be with all of you. It's funny to have stage fright on I want to thank Pierre who came and put the painting back up while it fell. I'm going to share screen because I'm sharing with you first, thank you, Laura. This is a beautiful issue and all this work, but I've decided to show something different that I've been working on during the duration. And it's a snippet of, it's only 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes of a 50-minute performance that I did at home for an online French poetry festival. So it was all done in French. So I added a voiceover that's actually kind of, I had fun doing this. It became another piece. So here we go.
Here, the volition of the Homo sapien action is integral.
Ici, la volition est une action Homo sapienne intégrale. Une ovulation pigmentée et kinesthésique, fécondée par la capacité de l'équilibre corporel. Mais ça, on n'a pas encore vu ça.
A pigmented and kinesthetic ovulation fertilized via the body position capacities. A pigmented and kinesthetic ovulation fertilized via the body position capacities.
Moi, Radio Métal Rouge, pratique l'équilibre. Moi, Radio Métal Rouge, appréhende le temps et fait confiance aux incertitudes.
The sound came off.
I, red metal rat, practice balance. I, red metal rat, apprehend time and trust creative uncertainties on breaking news and extended edges.
Regarde mes poils rouges. On n'attend pas le salut. Vous attendez le salut, vous? Moi, je cherche l'équilibre.
I, red metal rat, not looking for salvation. Are you looking for salvation? You're looking for balance.
Et aussi, comme ras de mes poils rouges, je préfère contempler les réponses. Cette responsabilité in English, responsibilities.
In the end, as red metal rat, rather contemplate my response abilities.
Wow.
The painting is behind.
Brava. Wow.
So Larkin is a poet, an artist, and a professor whose poetic and hybrid works can be found in many reviews. And we share a publisher. I have had 2 books of translation with Mind Made Books. And you have Off Traverse and Template. And you also have 2 chapbooks with Ducey Collective. One is called Off Material and one is Coming Minings. And you also do visual poetry, including in the Evan Writing collection of the Ohio State University Library. And you also create text-driven performance art for venues such as Highway Performance Space, also for Counterpath Gallery, and others. So I am very happy to get to know you in person now and to introduce you.
Thank you, Nicole. And it was absolutely wonderful to see you in action creating your work. I love seeing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Laura, for gathering us all together. This is quite an honor. I have a very short poem, but first, if Dudrick was going to put my, yeah, here we go. Thank you. At the top of the page before the poem in the journal is this photographic diptych. I took these photographs exactly 1 month apart during this pandemic, and it was the first time I'd ever seen the market that's the closest to me with its cupboard completely bare. And excuse me. And then a month later, the blooms from the jacaranda tree just fell on the lawn, and the neighbors all came out and shouted "purple rain." And so it was an interesting contrast to see such lack and then nature's abundance during and still during this time. So that's why I paired these together. The title of the poem is Effect as It Exists. And being a writer and a visual person, when I look at the title, I see its shared letters. The fact that E's are in effect and exists, and that there's 2 eyes, and they're dotted like eyes that are looking inward or outward or both. So this is a very short poem. When I use the word helix, I just wanted to look up its background, and that's when I found, if I didn't know before, that it's actually a symbol of resilience. So hence why that's included in this poem. Okay. Effect as it exists. In, to, interior, or in tears, or insight. No in, I-N-N, merely inside. The size of this minuscule room, you must emphasize. 3 months sequestered within this tiny room. With those in smaller yet, you empathize. Outside in tents huddled 2 city blocks, boulevard, no yards. Helix, double us, please, to be inside, outside, harmonious. Dear symbol of resilience, silence is in your name. Thank you. Dudrick Bevins is a queer, interdisciplinary artist and publisher who lives, teaches, and creates in New York City. His collection of poetry and photography, Route 4, Box 358, is available from BD Studios, New York City. And his chapbook, My Feelings Are Imaginary People Who Fight for My Attention, is published by The Poet's Haven. And he currently teaches creative writing and literature to high school students in Harlem. I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Larkin. I appreciate that. And your poem was beautiful, and your image, your diptych, was very compelling. I'm gonna ask, and I hope this is appropriate. Can I appropriate your diptych for my poem?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm into appropriation.
So
Yes.
I'm going to reshare your image because my poem is all about tension, and it's also very short, and I think my poem is untitled, so I'm just going to call my poem Effect as it exists. Possibly
Cool.
possibly affect as it exists. So forgive me if that's inappropriate, but
No. It's good. It's good.
Okay, so this poem, very short, composed for the occasion. I like to always write something new for Laura and for you all. Referent. The divine as disgust, and likewise awe as objection. Weighted ideas, overdeterminism, excess of signifiers. Biffo's asthmatic sympathies and description of semantic over-inclusiveness. I choose my metaphor thusly. Positional asphyxiation. Definition resting in police, military holds that lead to death. Consider a command and also a hope, an implore. The religious and the grotesque, this duration as a foment of positions, classed and raced and sexed divisions. The next section is omitted for future career opportunities. Dog whistle, the shackled tongue of veil. I need one sound only, that holds all but swallows nothing. Perhaps a cough, perhaps a gasp, perhaps Douglas Kearney's grunt. I imagine the sound of skin on milk, Kristeva's voice. Is it that different from the Karen videos and police suffocating untold men in illegal holds, both on Facebook with the sound off scrolling? Not that different from a car crash witnessed between the hit and the ambulance. The sound, all sounds, the blank Odin rune is both the breath and the indivisible but labored rhythm of the ventilators that for so many have just come to life. Thank you.
Ooh.
So thank you for allowing me to borrow your beautiful diptych to explore my tensions between the divine and the disgust and awe and objection. And those flowers really speak to me with the overdeterminism and the excessive signifiers. Anyways, I am pleased to introduce Adina Karasik, a New York-based Canadian poet, performer, cultural theorist, and media artist, the author of 10 books of poetry and poetics. Her Kabbalistic inflected urban Jewish feminist mashups have been described as electricity in language and proto-aesthetic jet populistic word torsion, which is a torsion to say and kind of poetry on its own, noted for their cross-fertilization of punning and knowing, theater and theory, and a twined virtuosity of mind and ear, which leaves the reader deliciously lost in Karasik's signature syllabic labyrinth. Beautiful. Most recently published is her Checking In from Talon Books, as well as Salome, Women of Valor, from University of Padova Press, Italy. Known for her spoken word opera, co-created with Grammy Award-winning composer Sir Frank London. She teaches literature and critical theory at Pratt Institute. The Book of Illuminations is forthcoming from Talon Books. Look for it in 2021. Thank you. And let me unmute you.
I could maybe good. Hi everybody. First of all, I apologize. I'm testing this background out, and I see that I look like I've got grills. So yeah, it's like I don't know how to deal with that. Anyways, it's so wonderful to see everybody, and thank you so much for the intro. Wow, you did the whole introduction. That was a lot. I am not going to do the COVID thing that's in, there's a number of pieces in the journal, which I am so grateful. It's such an important journal, and I'm very, thank you so much, Laura, for that, but because it's findable online. So we go through a lot of emotion. I've gone through a lot of emotions and a lot of different tones. So here's one of them. Two pieces. Because in these troubled times, this poem is drowning in hard gloving and anti-semantic wipes, crying out between Clorox and a hard place, saying, Clorox me like a hurricane, Clorox lobster, Clorox my body till it hurts, just Clorox it, Clorox the house, the Casbah, Clorox the town, because crocodile Cloroxing is something shocking when your fear just can't keep still. So I wanna Clorox with you, hoochie coo. Clorox around the clock, Clorox till you drop, Clorox me all night long. I'm a day, a sweet little Clorox and roller. Just Clorox the night, Clorox me tonight. Clorox your heart out and put some viral grime in the jukebox, baby, because I love Clorox and roll. It's a Clorox and roll fantasy. I wanna Clorox you all over and over again. You got sweat on your face, which I will erase so you're not waving your droplets all over the place. Say everyone's Cloroxing tonight. So everyone let's Clorox in the jailhouse, Clorox and roll. Long live Clorox and roll. That's a lot of cleaning. A lot of cleaning. Okay. All right. Another quick piece. And remember, this is like all in medias here. And remembers when remote learning was about navigating the clicker, when social distancing was ghosting and masks were for theatrical affect, when every day it didn't feel like Rapunzel and Juliet, Jonah and Lady Macbeth in equal turns, and flattening the curve was to watch one's carbs. It remembers the feel of your skin, the taste of your lips, mouth, belly, the arch of your back, when wearing latex gloves was part of a BDSM night of fashion, when virility was measured by fomites, not fomites, when a plume was the flourish of feathers, foliage, stars, wings, not the far-flung flurry of an infected flush, when aerosols housed hairspray, spray paint, room fresheners, not the propellant pressure of respiratory nuclei, when the longest lines were those of Proust and Melville. Remembers when my body was a thirsty surface and when only language was a virus. Thanks.
Whoa. Bravo.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to now introduce awesome Barrett Watton. There, look at that.
Put on the glasses there, yes.
Very studious, very studious.
Get serious.
Barrett, and I didn't think that we did the whole thing, so it's like, Barrett Watton is the author of many important books, including The Constructivist Moment from Material Text to Cultural Poetics, Questions of Poets, Language, Writing, and Consequences, co-editor with Leniginian, A Guide to Poetics Journal, and Avant-Garde Experimental Poetics and Cultural Dislocation, Fulbright Scholar, poet extraordinaire, professor of English at Wayne State University. De toi, I give you the one and only Barrett Watton.
Right. That's good. So what I want to share with you is a little bit of the, like how it was I came to the poem that I'm going to be reading. And on the other hand, yes. I was doing I had two projects in this period. One of them was the 0 Hour project that's now been published in China. And following Adina, it's so heavy. And it's so heavy, I'm going to have to read the introduction, which actually has Adorno. But it's remarkable as well that this, this Adorno quote sort of sets the tone for the experience that we were going to have, even though he's writing in 1945. And that was what was so interesting about the 0 Hour. So the fatalism by which incomprehensible death was sanctioned in primeval times has now passed over into utterly comprehensible life. The noonday panic fear in which nature suddenly appeared to humans as an all-encompassing power has found its counterpart in the panic, which is ready to break out at any moment today. Human beings expect the world, which is without issue, to be set ablaze by a universal power which they themselves are, and over which they are powerless. And that was the context for writing the poem Note Site after Hannah Höch. And the poem started with a epigraph from Williams, actually, and I thought that was going to be the title. It is only an isolate flex that something is given off. No one to witness and adjust, no one to drive the car, because no one is in control of this thing, and we're absolutely without any sense of where it's going. And I decided to change it back to Note Site for the work of Hannah Höch, who actually went into inner immigration in the period of the 40s. She dug in. She had a little house outside of Berlin. As an avant-gardist, she would have been persecuted, but she kept on doing work. She had a very high hedge around her house, so she wasn't really noticed very much. She was sort of an elderly lady at this point. Nobody paid her any mind. And in the middle of this, she did a series of watercolors, and I read about some of this work, more the upbeat stuff, but then the work that I like the title of is Note Site, not Site, Note Site. Note is need, suffering, whatever, Note Site, after Hannah Höch. And then I gave myself the basic task of starting to write a line, actually a 2-line, long line that would hang over. And then the next day I had to write 2 of them. And the next day I had to write 3 of them, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. And so the poem kept on growing, but it kept on getting harder to write in one day. So we get to 15 and it's torture. 16 is really awesome. 17, 18, 19, how to end it. So I had to count the numbers, figure out what was enough. And it turns out I ended up with something like 303 lines. So I'm going to go back and read the 18th one, not the one that you have, and I'm going to show an image from Hannah Höch, which I associate with this experience. It's called Traumnacht, Dream Night, from her period of inner immigration. So this is number 18. Now I have a memory, a group reading of Spring and All to a stricken friend who did not survive in a community shelter near the ocean. Some 30 years on, the text is a lucid declaration of the present in mourning for it, an anticipation of the present for which we mourn. The archive unfolds its presentness, oceanic feelings reduced to marks on paper, each remaining potent with irresolution, virulent themselves. Negative capabilities sought the present in lieu of any outcome. Marks on paper record their firm resolve, despite contingency of time and manner. A gathering colloquy planned for months is canceled. We meet instead on virtual media and in Lisbon after the crisis in 2 years' time. This is your birthday, sister, and I rejoice that thus it passes smoothly, quietly, ere the great voice from its fair place shall bid our spirits fly. A day advances past one that is marked, another passes it by. Each is an iteration of the same, flattening the curve in increments. The crisis comes in waves, first wave withdrawing, followed by a larger swell, which rolls back. A barely perceptible surge announces the third. Electronic monitors record O2 levels, heart rate and blood pressure, cardiac rhythms, breathing rate. Everything is normal within limits. Dreams are awash. It is better to forget them. The crisis is canceled, postponed for a week, a month, or a year. We will never get back to it. Your self-understanding is a distortion. The guilt of existence is universal. You dared to think you are an exception. This is your correction. I dreamed we couldn't record my podcast, he said, because the disease spreads over the airwaves and we would risk each other's lives. There is continual disquiet about food. Will there be enough of it? What is missing from the shelf? What dangers must I face to obtain it? Does anything in your dream mean more than a pitiful gasp of the unconscious, creating a parallel unreality to the one you are now in? There is never enough food. The people are frozen in their instinct of survival. A new wave of violence will be forthcoming from them. She compares such dreams to a jukebox in a diner, the greatest hits of our inner turmoil, neatly labeled, shuffled, replayed nightly in sleep. Panic buying on a suspended day before scheduled redemption. The world of commerce acquires our religious needs in the competition for goods. Death is a commodity on the market. If there is too much death, the market fails. We must withhold our deaths to bring the price back up.
Wow.
It gives me a lot of pleasure to introduce Norman Fischer. And I feel solidarity with Norman Fischer around the question of time. I've known him for a long time. And I was thinking about what I would say about Norman Fischer. And I would say, Norman Fischer is the master of duration. Because he's studied duration quite a bit. He's undergone many versions of duration. So, he's a master of it. But I would never say anybody could be a master of time. And I think that that's really quite impossible. And Norman, even though he is maybe a master of duration, he's not a master of time. And that's not possible. And so one of the things I think Norman is entirely aware of is the fact of the relationship between his mastery of duration and his lack of mastery of time. He cannot master time. And so that's my introduction for Norman Fischer.
Thanks, Barry. That's great. And I think that I organized that reading of Spring and All not far from here where I'm sitting now 30 some years ago, and I remember it well. It was really a beautiful afternoon. Thank you, Laura, for putting together this fabulous issue of the magazine and for doing this. I'm very, very happy to be here. Lots of my really good friends are here on the screen, and so including Barry and Carla and others, so it's really pretty thrilling. I'm going to read 2 minutes worth of the pandemic. I'm writing obsessively long, really long works. So I'm in the middle of another one. I don't know if I'll finish it or what'll happen to it, but it's in midst. It's called Men in Suits. At the moment, anyway, it's called Men in Suits, and it's quite long. So I'm just going to take a piece of it from around the middle. There's a lot of prose in it, and this will be mostly prose. Once there was a king who had dreams. He could tell the future from such dreams, dreamt that next year's harvest be tainted grain. Such things do happen, that it make all mad, whole kingdom mad from eating grain. He asks, Counselor, what shall we do? We can't save back from this year's harvest enough grain for next year. For each year there's grain enough for this year only. This is the way of the physical world, which goes forth in producing what it needs that it doesn't yet have. Year by year, what shall we do? Counselor says, well, we run the kingdom. We cannot go mad. We must save back from this year's harvest enough grain for you and I to eat. Next year, we will stay sane. We shall run kingdom. This is what we must do. King scratches head, pulls beard, narrows eyes, adjusts crown, purses lips, pauses, pregnant pause, says, no, this is not good idea. If so, then we are sane and all are mad. They will say we are mad. We will be mad if all are mad and we are sane. We will be the mad ones. A mad king is deposed, and if deposed, chaos will reign without benevolent king. No, we must eat next year's tainted grain. We will also go mad, but what will we do? We will be mad, the counselor says. The king says, yes, but on each of our foreheads, we will affix a mark. When I look at you, I will see your mark. You look at me, you'll see mine. We'll know we're mad, and madly we shall rule with this in mind. What shall such a story mean? That it is better to go mad when everyone is mad than to be sane when everyone is mad and be thought mad, though sane by madmen? That being sane or mad is not state of mind, but state of society, that when society's mad, all are mad but think they're sane? That in such society, it is better to be mad than endure the pain of being sane enough to bear full witness to the madness? That kings must be as mad as those they rule? That the ruled are mad because of the food they eat, which makes them mad, because the seed, the sun, the water, the soil are madness infused, for material that's created and perishes must be, by virtue of that it comes and goes and no one can stop this, mad or becomes soon mad. So food makes madness, and therefore all who eat are mad, so kings must be mad, that being mad is the condition of kings and all others? That the condition of kings is the condition of the people they rule, and in truth, kings are ruled by their people whose nature infuses them, not the other way around? That counselors should never be obeyed. They do not know what they are talking about. Their rationality and policy expertise will always blind them to the simple truth. So, yes, so that's a long work. Hopefully we'll live long enough, if there is any time at all, to complete it. And now I'm really happy that I get to introduce Nada Gordon, the great and elusive Nada Gordon, who is, in fact, a collection of close to 1 trillion cells organized biologically to form her entire body. Born in Oakland, she naturally has lived quite a while in Japan, and just as naturally and obviously now resides in New York. Among her books are Folly, V-Imp, Swoon, Scented Rushes, and Violet. What did I tell you? The strange and elusive.
Stuck in a buffle zone, a normal pandemic day with normal mushrooms and a brain coral tomb ornament. Things fall in normal rivulets. My face, a powdered sugar substitute hidden and masked in the wine mind. I'm not used to the kitsune mask. I burp Indian food into it, then hum a feeble tune. I want my poems to have that lame feeling, like a game of checkers. Have to put a word here. Responding with palpitations and a wild dismay horning through the register, stroking the looseness of a cicada's ear, taking the iamb out of ambition. To shun is dazzling when you're a rune and a hair leafing through the old Nachtmusik. My duende is friendly, but my negative capability is something of a hillbilly. Probably we can't say that. Vajazzled groundhogs peering out of a hat. Checking my phone as orchid as a cockroach dreaming in Zoom time. Wait, my phone. The lame feeling of chartreuse drizzled with guillotines in the hoary den. It's just organistic in the bald hamper with the singing chickens.
I want to gnaw your leg. But why? I'll lie on my side like a liar. I'll call a stork, shaking its head no to defunding virus testing. I convert you into a cow, my free speech problem. Jesus or Hello Kitty? Wait, I gotta check my phone. The arrangement of these words, cloves stuck in an orange to cover up feculence. A clink, the fairy is blushing on the polished guillotine. My brain moves to the sound of the air conditioner. The fairy nests in the air conditioner. The world is fascinated by its own depravity. It's muggy and a blue jay screaming, and everything stinks of hydrochloroquine on the Freedom from Religion boat cruise. Sea pig, faceless fish, fangtooth, brittle star, darling starling, arc of scallops, abyssal spider, look monkeys swirling in the soft surround. High up in Muzak, I've got my tiger. I mean, I love you, honey, but I still gotta sing my song.
Bravo.
And now it is my pleasure to introduce Alden Nielsen. His books of poetry include Heat String, Evacuation Routes, Stepping Razor, Vexed, Mixage, Mantic, Semantic, A Brand New Beggar, Trey, and You Didn't Hear This From Me. With Laura Vrana, he is the editor of the recently published anthology of the collected poems of Lorenzo Thomas. Please welcome.
In a class with Baraka. In the end, then, to a room. Half hangs outside the hall, trashed, overheated. Pupils smart, squirm in dust, ashes add up under chairs, motes streaming, cling to blinking lids. An odor of investment accrues to this room. English beats against the glass, shadowing through the panes upon the table, obstructing paths of passing airplanes. The capital's accumulation of images in the mute wavering grain is something we dissect, practicing among ourselves the removal of harmful forms. Head at the window, scarring the glass, meaning glazes over. The watching White House beating back American artists in residence in the new Department of Corrections. Planes the blades of our speech, asks examples. Mine is of a piece with a room at an end that hangs half outside in essential popular air. Mine is of a flight that exclaims. Fingers against the glass, I check my watch, prepare to give examples. On first hearing sounds orchestral play Vince Guaraldi's Cast Your Fate to the Wind on a car radio. Blaze of night phrase, moon and blue phase, faith cast on waters. Rivers sang sandpipers, Orphic impressions shake poor hearts too. My best friend Sky knocking, clear channel running alongside the cast into wind, past Haynes Point, claims our fates. We unwrapped ourselves for this, limbs parting in the winds of unthreading music. We were winded, sated in waves, minded to repeat ourselves, to heat up with steamed windows against night beats streaming. Dawn rose with river song from film, unsung, unstrung. We were singular, spun again, cast to the wind. And now Sheila Maldonado, who I understand teaches at City College of New York when people are allowed to teach at City College of New York, is the author of the poetry collections One Bedroom Solo, and That's What You Get. And this evening we get Sheila Maldonado, and here she is.
Hello.
everyone. Thank you. Yeah, actually, I no longer teach at college, so yeah, no, I don't. I teach at BMCC when, you know, I can also, you know, when they give me a class. Thank you to Laura for everything, and thank you, Alden. It's great to be here with you all, and I'm just going to share the screen. I'm going to share what is posted on.
Oh, good. You're going to do the video. This is a fabulous video, everybody. A video poem.
Thank you guys for sharing everything. It's been awesome. So let me share this. So the text of it is there, and it's also on the video, and it's made of several other poems of mine, as well as lyrics by other artists. And it's a mashup because my brain, you know, can function and still doesn't actually. Rona summer really sucks. So yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna get my brain back, but I was glad to mash this up for this project with a few other ladies. It was posted on Poetry Project, and it was just an attempt to like learn to video edit and to become a video, you know, being now that we are all video beings. So let me get it going. Let me see if I can do this. In this pod, this vessel, a crack known only to mice and water bugs, reverting to roller coaster origins, one high hour, one low. All the music they leave behind, I hope I leave enough music behind. It is as wrong to think you are nothing, you have nothing to contribute, as it is to think you are everything, that none of it could be without you. I am the night keeper, time breaker, shouldn't go to bed without singing. All we have is our devotion, how we earn our spots on the floor, flesh answering rhythm in waves, body cracked dumb. Disciple of spin, tame a loose planet in the orbit of my skirt, here to become the glyph. Slip into the wormhole of my hip, my neck, my back. Scratch the slur, beat the word, string talking to wind. Syllables, notes, spirits, as they are uttered. I insisted on the dark city, now persist in the dark city. Where am I? Did I live? Have I lived? I'm okay to go into a dimension of vast idiocy. Don't care if the neighbors see a rush of skin from their window, my body taking off. Yeah, and I'd like to shout out Ndlela and Kobe, who helped me, who taught me how to video edit. And we do some video editing stuff together under the name Bangay Hos, because we love Bang Joon-ho so much. And Tetas, which is the collective that I did this with, like we posted several different videos, and a collective video that I hope you see on the Poetry Project site. Susan Schultz is the author most recently of I Want to Write, An Honest Sentence. The Viewpoint is Presumption, Memory Cards, Simone Weil series, and Memory Cards Thomas Traherne series. She wrote Dementia Blog, and she's Welcome to Her Disease, Dementia Blog Volume 2. She founded Tin Fish Press in 1995 and edited until last year. She is a professor of English at U of Hawaii Manoa, and she's a lifelong fan of the St. Louis Cardinals. She misses baseball. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I love the video. Thank you, Laura, for the great variety of things that are appearing today on my iPad. Ron Silliman, welcome to the abbreviated baseball season. Go Cardinals. I'm going to read from the Obu Manifestos, Volume 2, which was the brainchild of Jim Berger. Obu stands for One Big Union, or Oligarchy Busters United. And I got to write a couple of manifestos for him. So, Obu, c'est moi. Manifesto, bird, sky. Obu loves words. Obu loves short words like bird and like sky. Obu looks to the things themselves for confirmation they still exist. The bird in the sky over the mountain, with or without clouds. Obu loves words, but finds it easier to lose the bird than to flush out the shithole. Obu wants to sit with the most beautiful words, suck on them like smooth stones, taste the salt left by seawater, hear the waves, see the surf. Obu finds this akin to love. But Obu cannot forget the conjoined words shit and hole. Obu picks up her dog's shit and doesn't mind. She puts that shit in the dumpster's maw. She doesn't mind. But the word shithole hurts. She cannot get it out of her head, her chest, or off her fingers. It sticks as much as stinks. It's crazy glue, but it doesn't pull our torn skin together. Obu argues with her kids about who makes the house more a shithole than the other. It's a lame effort at humor because some of us are white and some of us are brown. Obu wants to put shithole in a container, like one of those containers that keeps radioactive materials off our roads, out of our water. Obu wants to wash these words with pure water, to pull them out of their ponds and let them dry in the sun. But Obu feels the urge to censor, to destroy, to burn the word, to diminish the language in order to save it. Obu has the torch, and the word comes with straw attached, as so much attaches to shit. Obu wonders how to have the word and let it rest. There's a rest in music, and there are commas in the sentence, but is there rest in our politics? It's a shitstorm after all, though shit seems less toxic in that word than in a shithole. Obu wants to hear the news without falling in its shithole. Shithold. The forest of words hides our trauma until it explodes. There are landmines in our language, and we lose arms and legs, as our leader points out in another context. We lose the limbs of our sentences. We bleed particles, but nothing adds up to walking or breathing or bird or sky. Obu wants her language back. This is not nostalgia or the Vedic hope for beauty and lollygagging lambs on the lawn. This is politics, and it is spirit. Obu wants a spiritual politics, one that's angry but knows to forgive. How long until Obu can forgive? Okay. Lainey Brown, it seems, does everything. She's a poet, prose writer, teacher, editor. She gave a wonderful reading the other week in the series that's curated by Ray Armentrout and Jean Huving. She is translated into many languages. She has an anthology forthcoming, A Forest on Many Stems, essays on the poet's novel, which indicates that she's very interested in blurring boundaries between genres. And she teaches at UPenn and at Swarthmore College. She also apparently really loves hair, as I found out in her reading that I watched. So Lainey.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you, Laura. And it's so great to see everybody. And hear your work. I'm honored to be in with all of you today. So I'm going to read a tiny excerpt from the piece that's on the in the journal, which is from a manuscript called Practice Has No Sequel, which follows my book Practice, and then a tiny new, very new poem. From Practice Has No Sequel. Morning moves stone lips, offers more than arms, where inside which locket grove coils uncharted on the other side of a chasm, bereft again, misunderstanding impermanence. Walk toward russet, dilapidated buildings, see 5 dimensions, eroded brick coverlet drawn up against chin of wood, cold gloss and sediment. The reader is spectral, third eye collage, rivets braid, turn back, belongs to a dusk storm, alphabets break, music and the sea. How to write about nothing, open, like a stone, intimates, gesture. Hydrangea. If I knew to what turns my hand would wake, if reading weren't supernatural, belief is nothing more or less stalling, roving air, completely illusory, a primarily invisible motion, hydro, water, angos, vessel, bluer than tiny, numerous, secrets, multitudinous petals escort an assortment of flares, glints, visible for fractions of seconds, ensembles flowering, clusters, do not turn away, nod cerulean, wooden, stems, lacy blossoms. I do not wish for captive companions, though I did cut this bloom to bring inside, which lasts longer than glints I saw walking, a shard of red in hedges and gutters. I laughed at my wish to see prolific signs, shrubbery aflame, instructions, broken glass, plastic, or foil. I could not say which, being so small, as I approached, glimmered, then disappeared, a sliver, a morning candle, a notebook, any momentary attention. Nothing was asked, barely addressed, later crumpled, petals shorn, though I was not alone. What I am doing is no different. I place the hydrangea near my head, lean my skull close to crown, listen for indigo, speculate. They too must be clustered, hydrangea thoughts, close, near, pressing. And then they arrived, magnificent, and I wrote them down here. Thanks. I am looking for the intro. Here we go. I am very happy to introduce Hank Glazer, who has published 31 books of poetry, including the recently released Slowly Becoming Awake and Poems That Look Just Like Poems, 1 volume in English, 1 in French, Evidence of Being Here, Beginning in Havana, Thinking in Jewish, many previous books, including Poems Hidden in Plain View in English and French, Rush Mind at Hand. Glazer has performed jazz poetry, improv in the US and Cuba, and in 2015 received Alabama's most prestigious literary prize, the Harper Lee Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature. Welcome, Hank.
Thanks. Thanks, Lainey. Well, let's see if we can. So I've written a series of 5 COVID-19 sutras, which actually, strangely enough, will be out in the world as a book in another couple of weeks from Lavender Ink. And I'll read you from COVID-19 Sutra 4 as it appears in the wonderful journal that Laura has edited. COVID-19 Sutra 4 subtitle is We're Back. Actuality is not flat. This morning, the voice has not entered me. Shadowy light through pines. To see it steadily. Peace and compassion. Are these the voice? It itself remains the question. Head, heart, hand. Transmission is happening. We could think about it forever. Walking upon the bare ground, I look down. Transparent eyeball. I have no head. I never did. It all passes through me. I am a doorway, a portal, an occasion by which it arrives. Magic catalyst, read this. Remember something else. Mind in tranquility sees it as it arises. It is place that shelters you. No one, place, well, changing light, seasonal dance of green and gold. This happens to you. We debate the meaning of the numbers, infection count, death count caught in a time delay, death of logic, death of rationality. Science becomes something to believe or not. Once that verb gets introduced, science finds itself cast into a space where it perishes. The future has contracted into now and the next few months. Pileated woodpecker pounds the railing of the deck. Whoever told you that observing your mind was easy? I can't live like this all the time. We already are self-driving cars. Nothing so pleasing as that first bowel movement of the day. Hydrangeas are beginning to bloom, and a few gardenias too. Time and change. Listen to the tune underneath it all. Meaning cannot be extracted from daily reality, so don't expect it in a poem. Cascade of overlapping bird calls, traffic and human activity mix with wind through trees. Who would seize on one thing over another? Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back, says Trump, May 5th, 2020. He was just in a fucking rage. He was saying, this is so unfair to me. Everything was going great. We were cruising to re-election. American virus deaths at 100,000, now 140,000. What does a number mean? We're back. My ass, you stupid motherfucker. As if a cloud came over me. Thank you. And it is my pleasure to introduce Brenda Coltis, who is the author of The Tatters from Wesleyan University Press. And her poetry can also be found in Bomb and Brooklyn Rail and the anthologies Reading in Contemporary Poetry, published by the DIA Art Foundation. What is Poetry? Just Kidding, I Know You, Interviews from the Poetry Project, newsletter, 1983-2009, and Symmetries, 3 Years of Art and Poetry, Dominique Levy. Past spring, she was an artist in residency at the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation in Captiva, Florida. Brenda.
Hi, thanks, Hank. And thank you, Laura. It's great to be here. And I'm just going to read 2 pages from what I sent to the journal. And I was also just thinking that I wrote these pieces from being in a shelter, sheltering from the virus. And having been very blessed to not have anyone sick, even though I know some people who passed. I've been very blessed to not have COVID in my family or in, among, enough said. You know what I mean, okay? The hour of making. The writing this morning begins with erasure. I deleted the false starts, changed gears, gazed beyond the screen and onto objects on the desk and back. Everything is closed, and I'm bored with the restraints of masks, of cooking, of TV and podcasts, all the ways of filling space that people once filled. Inside my shelter, at the Jeremy keyboard, a random sentence hour ensues from a bag of fragments, and I wonder if I can ever lengthen these bits of thread. Dried beetles, octagonal skylight, lobotomy needle, nudity concealed by flyleaf, blue glow working up nerve or heat, flintlocks, burnt buttons, buckles and coins, garden petals in repose. In space, the black void burst with color, buried here in this room under a pile, mummified with wild hair and parchment skin, skin that turns to paper or what is written on the face. Riddles saved for later. I want to see living room furniture in a ditch, and I mourn the tragedy of the grandest house in a small town. Hard clock hour. Flashback of factory clock, the punch in and punch out, waiting for the ticks of the minute hand. The boss calls you in, admonishes you for standing by the clock or for low production. You stamped out 600 parts an hour, 200 parts short. Did you come back drunk from lunch and operate heavy machinery? Did I get drunk instead of logging time at keyboard? Neaten my nails to write, neaten my clothes, straighten shoes, roll up rug. Season the beans, season the room, the desk lamp, the line of pins, the tangle of paper clips, and the lion's breath seasons the broth. I put my face on and began to write. The lion's fallen hairs became felt and made a useful hat. The lion's paws warmed my shoulders like a weighted blanket, and the lion's snore a lullaby. The purr of the lion's pleasure pleased me. The lion has its own room and its own meat. It wears a red coat in cold rain and greets me at the door. Nudges, rubbing nose against my human legs, a truce between us. We had come to accept each other, both locked inside a pleasant enough house. But we want out and we push at the cracks, push at the trap, like the little mouse who made itself even littler, who banged and banged against metal and squeezed out in reverse, fled the trap of the unknown with only its nose for a guide, the nose that led it into the trap of kindness. Thanks. So I want to introduce Carla Harriman, who I've known for many decades, and I know she was also a guest on Laura's program here, so I'm not going to give a long official biography, but you know that she's written more than 20 volumes, and she's well known as a multidisciplinary writer in all genres. And I did want to mention, particularly since it's so recent, publication in 2020 of A Voice to Perform, One Opera, Two Voices. I think that Carla elevates any event that she participates in. I'm always thrilled when I find her in many of the rooms of the internet. These are like rooms on Zoom, many community events. To call her beloved is an understatement. Please welcome Carla Harriman.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. So I'm going to read with my partner in crime something titled Good Morning Trailers Mashup. And so trailers as in movie trailers. And it's dedicated to Barrett because in the poem he read, he has this line, this phrase, parallel unrealities in dream, which is definitely a skeptical iteration in regard to such things, but I can't help myself. Hi, how are you? I'm okay. I was dreaming and it was exciting. We were on a boat.
No, that wasn't a dream. We were on a boat.
Did you see that there was another boat with a man on his white belly floating in water, steering it with a rudder? He seemed perfectly okay doing this, steering the boat from the outside of it.
Like that movie we watched the other night. It's not the same day. Good morning.
And I thank God and you.
V is tearing out some grass. It's overgrown the bed.
Do you think V should be staying here, an adult with their own life?
Maybe. V is really good at tearing out the grass. It's hard to get under the roots. Their system is on driven.
I had to stretch my legs. It's international law that one has the right of movement. So I missed breakfast, sorry. There was a chalk drawing of a sailboat on a driveway with smudged lettering that said, "Sail away." It made me think that I have something in common with neighbors I have never met and will probably never talk to.
The cereal is still out if you want some. There's something I need to prepare. It's going to take a day, all day. I was thinking how you should get a dog.
Did I give you that pencil?
Yes, I had it tucked away. Got more at Office Max.
Okay, that was nice. The breakfast with your rendition of HH and novel theory of fork in the road between expressive representation and future anticipating abstraction at that particular historical marker. And the coffee was particularly tasty this morning. I've been on a little thrill ride of my own, thinking about how everyone just keeps coming. Babies and babies, children and children, adults moving through adulthood and being swarmed.
This is a fork in the road. Hey, good morning. I didn't know you were up. I'm up and I've made some toast.
I decided I really prefer mine without butter mostly.
Butter mostly? Well, we don't have that either. I've been making some tactical plans.
I'll bet you have. I'm not that hungry this morning, so I'll launch out to steal some books before.
I get delivery almost every day. Do you have a strategy? I don't think so.
Under the circumstances, the day got off to a mixed start with nothing indifferent about it. I woke up longing for those harbor contours again after a night of leaving baggage on trains and renting cars that wouldn't stay in park and joyrides in them that led to crashes.
That's a bit of mayhem. Glad to know you were figuring out the difference between dreams and reality. You know, I wanted to talk to you about how you mistook reality for a dream the other day. It fucking bothered me.
Why?
Why? Obviously, because I was literally there with you and you didn't notice. I felt almost abandoned, but also worried that you'd been under too much stress.
And how are you this morning?
Maybe. I am waiting to see how things unfold.
Okay. That's actually a condensation of a long work in progress that has some horrible, nightmarish passages, all of which have been cut out for this particular 3-minute event. I am thrilled and honored to be able to just say, here's Laura Hinton, and to acknowledge her amazing hospitality, imagination in present moments, which I have experienced going back decades now, where she somehow or another rallies something and brings something together that ends up staying with me and making so much like meaning that is durational in my life, including, for instance, the anthology that she and Cynthia Hogue put together, We Who Live to Be Astonished, which was a really important for me anthology of feminist poetics. And then I just wanted to say some other things about her as she's a feminist literary theorist, and she also is involved in the practice of moving between theory, poetics, and making her own new poetic modes, which are always surprising and very much moving between, somebody once mentioned in her book, I have to remember the name of it, so I'm going to look it up on my notes. It's Ubermütter's Death Dance, which is this extraordinary book that's related to the death of her son, and that the person who wrote about it on the back notes that it's starts as a documentary and then shifts into this incredible lyric mode, and it's just amazing work, and this kind of shifting and moving not only between genres but modes of thinking, I think, is just something that's so open and creates such surprising contributions and welcome contributions from Laura. So I wanted to, because this is a group of poets who may or may not be aware of her critical writing, I wanted to hold up this book, The Perverse Gaze of Sympathy, which was the next way that I became acquainted with Laura after she began with Cynthia the We Who Love to Be Astonished project. And it is a work that is considering masculine imagination and imagery within the context of film and many other kinds of valences. But one of the things that was so great is that she opened up this word sympathy within a contemporary context. And then her most recent work is this anthology that she edited on Jane Cortez, Adrienne Rich, and the feminist superhero. And I just really want to applaud her persistence in exploring feminist concepts and works. And I'm really, really grateful for that endeavor of hers. And then in addition to her book by Blaise Box that I just mentioned, Ubermütter's Death Dance and Sisyphus Dance is her work, Sisyphus, My Love, also published by the same publisher. And so I have more notes, but I just want to know what Laura's going to read. I'm really curious. And Laura, thank you for that great introduction also for this particular collection. It was just really wonderful.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to disappoint you because I decided that I wanted to keep in the spirit of the COVID duration, and my only COVID poem is with my partner in crime right now, Ronnie Thomas, an award-winning filmmaker who I was hoping would share the screen with me a minute, but he is having dinner with his teenage son who never comes to dinner. So he can't come to our meeting because he's having dinner with Odie, who usually rejects all the adults around him. So I'm going to just play our video together, and then we'll have a little dialogue to conclude, because to me it says so much about lockdown and what our major city in America and one of the major cities of the world looked like and felt like. And it's also in a tradition of having written my son what I call birthday poems every year as he got older. And it's a tribute to him because he He moved to New York when he was 13. He became a New Yorker, and he was a New York multimedia artist in Brooklyn when he sadly passed away at 32 from heart disease. So I'm going to screen share, and you know, Ronnie was riding his bike around Brooklyn and Manhattan during the apex. These photos were taken by Ronnie, and he was sending them to me by text. By the way, he was my son's collaborator, and they're about the same age, and one of his very best friends, Ronnie Thomas. And I said, you know, keep taking these photos. They're remarkable. And didn't know we were going to do anything with it. That was back in April. So this was really at the height of the lockdown, when, as I was saying, you know, 1,000 people a day are dying in America right now. But we had almost 1,000 people a day dying in New York City. But the thing is, I have to be honest, I've been in this garden in Woodstock, 100 miles north, and Dudrick and Janelle and Nicole and Pierre and Nada and others of you, Sheila. I think Sheila's piece is brilliant because it shows what lockdown for most people in New York was like, living in a small space and, you know, trying to survive and trying to take care of yourself. Tony. So this was my tribute to a city that we all groan about, but we all love. And so many people lost their lives. So many of our students lost parents, coming from communities of color. It struck those communities so hard. And I just got chills of sorrow. And it's not from my air conditioner here in my office. Devastating. And what I understand from all of you is the sirens every night were just devastating. Maria was there. Anyway, so I had to sort of put myself in the place. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago I went back to New York City. It was 3.5 months. And I was glad to see my city again. Anyway, and it was my son's city. And he did his own work, was very urban, centered around the streets of New York and the activities of brilliant New Yorkers like Ronnie himself. So going back to my question, what threads of commonality and what threads of difference do you see in this work? And we've all done so many very different kinds of sort of articulations of our inner and outer experience in the last 6 months. It's been 6 months, hasn't it? About? Maybe not quite.
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
I know Adina was still out there traveling, and the wonderful photo of her on her page was taken. Wasn't that the Atlanta airport? You were changing planes, Adina, coming back from South America.
Cartagena. I was in Cartagena. I was like, and then right when it hit, and I got on the last flight out, and I was like stranded, and when I was trying to get out of the city to get back in, and they were closing down all the flights, and I couldn't, they locked down all of Cartagena, the city that I was in, so you couldn't literally get to the airport. So even though I got to get on the last flight out, I had to literally pay the police on the street to allow me to get to the airport, to get on the plane, to get out of there. So it was very scary. But yeah, that was.
Well, I still have a friend. Many of you know Shiv Mirabito. He's a fellow Woodstocker. Brenda Coulters and I are just down the street from each other, and Shiv's kind of in the middle. He is still in lockdown in Nepal. He's supposed to be back in May. And, he couldn't get out without paying an enormous sum of money. And so he's now in the monsoons in Kathmandu because he can't get out yet. I thought he'd be back soon, but I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, so it's been something. How are the rest of you doing? And any creative juices working? Maria Damon's here. I mean, she didn't want to read anything, but her photographs helped inspire this journal. Maria was, some of you know, have her on Facebook, posting these amazing photos of her daily walks through Brooklyn and then to Greenwood Cemetery. So I urge you to look both at Nada's work on Greenwood Cemetery, friends but separate walks because everybody was in social distancing, isolation. But you know, gyms are closed, so you know, people are out getting some exercise, and Maria put together some extraordinary photos. And well, actually, her friends kind of butchered, I think, her original idea.
I didn't really have an original idea. You know, I thought just posting them on Facebook was enough, and then when you wanted me to put some of them together in some kind of narrative, I was completely flummoxed. And then people were giving me suggestions, and I was like, no, fuck you. I don't want to do that. So it just ended up, I asked for suggestions, and then I rejected all of them. I sort of took them. But anyway, the reason I'm lying down here in a state of obviously pillows and etc. is my back is
oh dear.
a little problematic, but I've been listening and enjoying everything. So,
well, it was my pleasure to introduce you to the world as a professional photographer.
Well, it's too late now. I can't crawl back under my little weaving rock.
Gorgeous ones. I think the one on Brenda Coultress's page. Some of you got some of her photographs. I think Alden, you had some of them. Brenda's has the shawl debris, which was a picture. It's just gorgeous. Take a look at it. It's just a stellar photograph of a picture of a shawl with leaves on it laying on the street.
Seems vaguely fetal to me.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell I always have this feeling, it's very macabre, and I know other people have it too. You know, sometimes you'll pass a plastic bag on the freeway or something, and it looks like something's in it, and you can't help but go to the worst possible possibility. You know, that there's a...
I think what's amazing about your eye is that you see those shapes, and you see, and if you look at her photo, we did a kind of gallery. You know, I think you have to click through it or whatever.
No, sure, sort of changes.
Yeah, it goes from these body parts that are on the tombstones, you know, to actual images of human bodies or animal bodies in the trees in Greenwood, and it's really extraordinary. And then I got to have a tour with Maria Damon and Nada a couple of weeks ago. I'd never been to Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, and if you are in New York and you haven't been there, you have a treat in store. But I don't go to Brooklyn. I go to Rome and Paris, and Nice. But I've never been to Brooklyn.
Come to Brooklyn. Come to Brooklyn.
They have restaurants there. They have good food. They have good cemeteries. They have good people. Anyway, no.
Not right now, but otherwise.
Who else has a comment, you know, about the work or about anything that's going on? Barrett, let's hear from you.
One of the effects of the reading was a little bit like something that I used to experience with Poets Theater in the early 80s, which is a kind of pleasure in duration, but it's not the kind of duration we just had to suffer. It's a completely flipped idea of duration, which is hanging on every word. And when it really gets, you know, when it really gets into an interesting area, that's the effect. And I thought the reading held up really across the board. You know, creating a different kind of duration that was very similar to that Poets Theater effect. And so that was bringing together the people's performative, you know, interest in inflecting the work performatively. I thought was really making it happen that way. So that's my comment. Duration, that this created a kind of duration that was not the one we just suffered.
Well, yeah, and I play on the term duration in my introduction because duration is, and from the dure from French is also hardness. and endurance. And the pun on endurance is something I learned by reading Durée Harris's work, one of her remarkable books, Amnesia. By the way, I was hoping that she would be part of this volume, but she, alas, went through a migraine period, so was unable to contribute, but she was excited in being involved. But because I'm very attracted to all of your work because it's multimedia, and Durée's is certainly very multimedia and interesting in those intersections between, you know, the page and the look of and the sound. Anyway, so there's that sense of duration, but then there's the Bergsonian, you know, notion of duration, of this kind of time that is sort of opened up instead of hardened or hard. And I think that all of you have actually inspired me to keep writing, you know, because I was working with your work and hearing you on InterRUPTions and reading your work or listening to it, and keeping that kind of open tension of durational. It's not time. It's he describes it as a kind of creative mind that doesn't have the same kind of boundaries, and certainly has nothing to do with metrical time or measured time, which is, of course, it's our human artifice. So I think that you've all been very inspirational to me in tapping into that enlarged sense of time, which gets, he says, it gets more and more large as we age, and so it becomes a more significant base of kind of, you know, mine data to mine and to create with. So, so these projects have been very inspirational to me. Your work has been inspirational. So I hope others are reading the journal and feeling as inspired as I've been. It's a good reason to be an editor. Bonus. So what do some of the rest of you think? I see Alden now has a swimming pool in back of him. Yeah, it looks kind of like my pool.
Good way to beat the heat.
While others think. So the duration has been a kind of opening to the artifice of so much. You said the artifice of time, Laura, and but I've been thinking about how much of what I do as a teacher is a type of artifice, and how much like professionalism is an artifice, and wearing buttons and a tie is so insane when I don't even have to wear pants to teach on Zoom. So, you know, those things are so insane, and all those meetings that could have been emails ended up being emails, and it was okay. And so thinking about like what is false but still acted on, and then what is real but not acted on, and then in the duration having that opening to act on what is real, which is my time with myself and my time with my work and my time with my thoughts. It provides this expansive space for me, even though I'm in a tiny New York apartment. And I've been incredibly productive, but that comes with a lot of artistically productive, but that comes with, you know, a kind of guilt, not a kind of guilt, an actual guilt, because I'm across the river from a hospital where people, you know, were dying. And so what does it mean to have this, basically like I'm on a meditation retreat kind of life, where I'm looking inward and I'm focusing and I'm, you know, doing all kinds of spiritual and artistic work. And then right outside my silent retreat is, death. And that's kind of what I was looking at in my poem today. And that's why I really wanted to have Larkin's image up while I read, was because that image encapsulated those two feelings for me, of this being ripped bare, of being bereft and naked and wounded, these shelves, this image of capitalism gone awry, and yet nature is still blossoming, all of us in our homes with our creativity still so fresh and so determined to make something beautiful regardless. And like I listed a couple tensions in my poem, like the divine versus disgust, and then awe and abjection are among them. And just kind of dwelling in that tension, that's the duration for me. How do I make meaning? How do I make beauty and meaning out of what's frustrating and killing people? I don't know. I'm rambling now, but that's something I'm seeing in a lot of our work here is this kind of tension of being present, of not being present. Listening to Carla, like in this kind of near like theater of the absurd, poetry speak in and out of dream simultaneously. This is where we're living, in this in and out of dream timelessness. Did I already have this conversation? What day is it? Is it 6 a.m. or 6 p.m.? I can't tell because it doesn't matter anymore. So sorry I went on so long.
Oh, thank you. Anybody else want to respond to Frederick? Boy, guilt, I've never felt so guilty. I don't feel guilty very easily. And having written about sympathy, I'm afraid to, as a sadomasochistic perversion, in my reading of Hume, as Carla very kindly showed, my earlier work on that, I mean, it's very difficult to put it all together. And thank you, Frederick, for articulating those kind of wounding, just like smashing together particles of this duration. There's nothing harmonious about any of it, and no meaning found, really. Only what we do with our time, maybe. Anybody else want to comment on this idea? Or anybody else feel guilt? I've also felt guilt for being in a garden and building my garden while others were suffering. Okay, let's see.
Yes.
Did I get you? Yes.
Hi. Okay. I'm just very compelled by the conversation and duration that has happened. And there's something I feel that we're getting at that also goes back to this Poets Theater impulse, where that's where some of this sense of duration gets sort of transformed into artifice and becomes an object for me, but also that there's something just profoundly amoral about the situation that one is in. And so the guilt that anyone does or can experience in the proximity of death, for me, is also something that is happening continuously and all of the time. And I feel that it's this moment, in a sense, is a kind of illumination around the poetry and the poetics of a great number of people, and I'm thinking particularly in this country, but of course beyond that, that has to do with this derealization of violence on the body through war or other modes, warlike modes that are often happening in other places, while there's this kind of ideology of a protected space within the nationalistic space that we're living in. And I really feel that a lot of the work that is written and comes out of, for instance, this particular collection of poets, which is quite diverse, is connected to that for me in some ways.
Wow.
I'm not finished with it. Is Carla, you just inspired me. Is Barrett? Yeah, Barrett, you're still there. So Barrett, I'm reading Bad History. Do you feel like what Carla said about this violence of war on the body, is that something that you were? Is that something you feel like you were coming to terms with before this? Like, I mean, Bad History is 19.
Over the last 5 years, I've had several different impulses to write Bad History 2.0. And then the question is like, I mean, it's so relentlessly bad, that almost anything becomes, Bad History itself is very thematic. I mean, there's the Iraq War, and this is actually the first Iraq War, and then there's the LA riots, and one thing after another. We have this blend effect. But the other thing I'm struck by is Carla mentioned sequestering. Are we okay? Yeah, okay. Carla mentioned sequestering. What's going on here? I'm getting a funny feedback, but
it's okay. If you have your microphones on, you can mute and unmute yourself.
Okay. Well, I just want to make a simple point about sequestering as this illusion in relationship to the social violence that's out there. And, I'd be down there taking part in things that are more exposed, but frankly, that would be Wahnsinn, that would be crazy to do. I'm not going to do that. My contribution has to be sequestering in this period. And then at the same time, the violence is really an eternal return, or the changing same. It's recurrent, and it's a recurrence of that. So that's a little bit that Adorno quote. This moment of the noonday panic that we are, looking into the glare of the noonday panic sun is mesmerizing, but also it's like exposure. And so I don't think any of us are safe, even though we're sequestering. And maybe that's an edge that we're all kind of, trying to negotiate, right? Yeah. This feeling this is not a very safe experience, but we're all protecting ourselves the best we can. So I'll kind of go there. But I mean, I think that the poem I read certainly, is an outgrowth of Bad History. It's the technique of Bad History. And the durational aspect of it is so it's both a register of these threatening events, but it's also a processing of them. It's a trying to make the poem itself be the negotiation with the bad history. And so then the question is, how do you end bad history, right? That was my problem in writing that first book. How do you end bad history? Because bad history keeps wanting to recur, as it has for me, it turns out, right? So how do I end bad history? That's a really good question. So I'm writing my way through it. And in this sense, it's kind of distributed and it's all over. Like the little glitter dust, that somebody tried to use as a metaphor for imagining COVID. Imagine that everything's covered in glitter and you've got to get the glitter off. That was some guy talking about how to detox your packages coming in from the grocery store. Imagine there's just little glitter all over it. You've got to take the glitter off before you take stuff into your kitchen. And that's an unrealistic way of thinking about it as well. It's still colorless, odorless, and invisible, this threat that we're looking at. So this is some thoughts. But I mean, yes, bad history is a formal problem. And the formal problem is the bad history. Like, how do you write your way? How do you negotiate your way out of it? I don't know if that answers your question, but it certainly poses more of them.
It adds it continues. I mean, this statement that Carla made, ideology of a protected space,
Right.
it really resonates with me, and I think what all of us have been writing and creating have been trying to do is to keep alive on some level. Yes, Janelle.
Yeah, I mean, to be frankly honest, I feel in a lot of ways this situation has forced everyone to confront what it's like to be Black, what it's like to have death at your doorstep, to have to worry about others trying to destroy you, in any way, in every way possible, not being able to trust your neighbors per se, or the people you work with, the people who are paid to protect you. And I think that without even getting into the police brutality and the specific instances of violence that have become or became viral during this moment, I think just that constant fear of like, I don't know who's out to get me. I don't know if I am going to survive this. And I'm not per se made to survive this. And there's nothing here to protect me, is a really jarring and eye-opening, apocalyptic kind of experience. And I think that is what genocide and what racism and what war and really capitalism is all about. And we are allowed to protect ourselves in various ways. As I guess it was like 2016 when I realized, and after some pretty violent incidences that weren't necessarily physically violent, but they were, in that macro aggressive kind of way, that I wasn't really safe anywhere, and that my house was the safest place for me. And within my house, my bed was the safest place for me. And honestly, being forced to be here in this time, I've actually had to realize like that's not actually true, right? There's still spiders that could get me. The ghosts of the past that are, around could get me. The fact that the mattress really needs to be gotten rid of, and moved elsewhere because of things attached to that. Like, it's not that comfortable. You know what I'm saying? So my personal relief and discovery has been in the creativity, but really in nature, because that is what's real and has sustained itself over time and is where we come from, right? And so I was thinking, as everyone's talking, I'm looking out my window and I'm thinking about the window as the screen and the new screen that we do share, because I can't watch the TV. I have watched TV, I've gone through periods, and this is what else I've been thinking is, it's schizophrenic, right? Like, 1 second, it's like, yes, I discovered this new thing, or I made this new thing, and, or I had this conversation with my best friend or my mom or daughter or whoever, and I love, that spark of infinite power and beauty and love is amazing. And then, I think one of the most horrific moments I've experienced was watching a man who might have been mentally challenged, definitely seemed homeless, picking plastic bottles out of trash bags that were, that get brought out every morning from the complex that I live in, just from this building, but in every building they're doing it. And I think he goes around to all of these buildings. He had a mask on his face, but he would take the mask down to blow air into these water bottles so that he could take them to the redemption center and get money for groceries at the grocery store. I don't think I've ever heard any sound that's so horrific in my life, of him blowing and the bottle crackling, right, in this moment. And he's wearing a mask. So, he knows that there's something to protect him, but he's not even blowing through the mask because you can't blow through the mask. I mean, so there's earth-shattering, soul-shattering things like this that everyone's going through. And then we do have, this idea of sequestering and protection and isolation and, is it going to be me? Who's next? So it's just like this constant tension of insanity, right? And it's Corona coaster. Yes, that's exactly it. And the one thing that I have really been able to hold on to is nature and the divine power that's there, because it has nothing to do with us. And without it, we cannot exist. And, thinking about seeds and thinking about all that it takes for one seed to survive, and yet all the power that's in that one seed is my eternal, I think, lesson. And if we could all reapproach our connection there, we can solve all of this. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Janelle. That was so beautifully said and so important. And ironically, I should be in great shape because I've been gardening and planting from seeds for the first time this year, having been stuck. I was supposed to be on my plane to Rome today, everybody. Here we are, and maybe this is actually more productive for me, but it's also a little painful to give up one's trip. And I'm planting seeds because I'm here. And and it takes a lot of nurturing to plant those seeds, and most of them don't come up, and they need just the right amount of air and water and sun, and each seed, I'm learning, also has different requirements for germination. Some of them like dark, some of them have to be crushed, some of them have to be soaked, and I'm no good at that. So most of my seeds aren't coming up, but a few are, just a few, and it only takes a few. And you are an incredible seed, Janelle. You are so inspiring.
So we all are. That's the thing. We all are. We all are. And I definitely feel like it's an act of resistance, planting. And we have to do something to combat the death, right? Like how can we bring life? How can we bring more life when all of this death is happening? Like, I don't think anybody's really engaging with like the spirits, right? Like all of this, where are all these souls going? How is this energy shifting? Like massive energy shifts in 2 months, a month, like, so I say yes, drink water, plant seeds, like fight for everyone to have access to these things. And I feel like this is the shift in that direction, because even as much as we're trying to get back to the normal, it's not going to happen. It won't happen. It's impossible. So I just hope we can keep pushing towards the new that should have been the old, so that, we don't have to be here again.
Some beautiful, I'm reading the chats, and I'm going to go through and read them all when we're done. Maybe hopefully make the video if I can get it together to do that. And appreciating also Russell Stockard for being here, and your beautiful comments, Russell, by chat. Lennox, you're still with us. Past bedtime for you. Do you have anything you'd like to say in the wee hours of the morning over in Europe? I'm trying to unmute you. You have to. Yeah. Why can't we unmute?
Okay, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, I just want to say it's wonderful. This is my first Zoom session, and
bravo.
And I just love listening to everyone, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's just beautiful being with you, and I feel it, and I feel what you're saying on whatever level, you know. And I think right now we have a wonderful opportunity to recreate our silences and our energies, and it's a great opportunity, and we must not be afraid of those who are desperately afraid of themselves and creating violence in other people's lives. I'm very optimistic.
Well,
I
you
feel as though
know where that violence comes from. Yeah, it comes from internal violence that a person is afraid to feel and experience.
Absolutely.
So project it outward. And
Absolutely.
racism is really based in that too. I mean, it's all
Yes,
violence.
yes.
It's all
Because essentially race is a fiction. It's a demoralizing fiction. It's a fantasy. It's a kind of like I mean, being a racist, for example, of whatever race, whatever, is a kind of like bad aphrodisiac. Aphrodisiac. Yeah. So I listen to everyone. I've been listening to everyone, and I feel ennobled listening to you. So thank you very much.
You know, it's getting late. If anybody else wants to say anything before we leave, I mean, it's we've had a very long session, but this has been a very moving conversation. Would anybody like to say anything before, you know?
Could I just say,
yes,
I'm very impressed with all the work you've done pulling these together, and I'm a friend and colleague of Larkin Higgins, so I want to give her the shout out. I hope she's still here, but maybe she is. Okay. And I just wanted to, and I guess I'm somewhat of a poet. Larkin has been very gracious in receiving some of my work, but I teach marketing, communication, and do a lot of stuff with sports. And I'm you know, I send my sympathies to all of you in New York, by the way, because you were the original epicenter.
Well, we're right across. Some of us are West Coast, East Coast.
Sure.
But there's
and Minneapolis too. Yeah. So anyway, so we've got to survive this war.
You're not in LA where it's bad right now, right?
Yeah, it's bad, but it's bad in a different kind of way. And I think, well, you know, I think the leadership in LA County was kind of coerced by people some people in the county and adjoining places to open up sooner. You know, even though it wasn't like Texas or Florida, but we had a slow growth here. But I think we'll get through it. We're figuring out. I think there's some good thinking going on, but at the same time, we have to recognize and remember those people who are sick, who are going to be sick because they're forced to be on the front lines, and those people who we've lost. And yeah, we've in California we've gone past New York State, but we're a much bigger state. So the folks that report on this stuff, meaning, you know, and exploit it, meaning the politicians of the other side, don't want to look at the details like, you know, rate per 100,000 and that kind of thing. So while it looks like we're like Texas and Florida, we're not. But it's not to say we couldn't get that way. So anyway, but thank you for doing this, and all of you who've participated, and particularly my brothers and sisters of color. Thank you for being part of this, and I think we're going to get through it. So, but we've got to keep writing, got to keep imagining, and got to keep fighting for justice. Yeah.
Can I say something? I would just like to say that love is more powerful than violence.
Oh, it is, and it's harder to evoke in the face of violence, isn't it? We lost John Lewis, and he persisted in fighting with love and getting into good trouble. So I think that's a good person, a good example to remember.
Do not despair. And if he can say that and live his life accordingly, we can try to make that our mantra.
Absolutely.
Try to make things better for, for all of us, including the animals and the planet. While all this is happening, I am writing on human violence, and one of the poems I almost read is about the burning of Australia last summer. And what we're ignoring right now is climate change, and the figures just came out that it looks so much worse than the worst projections. Like several degrees higher, not like, I don't know the numbers, I don't remember numbers, but they had the numbers down, what they thought could be the worst, and now it looks like a lot worse than the worst. The temperature is rising quickly, and so we have to somehow learn as humanity to work together. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Funny though, when you said the temperature is rising, I heard roll over Beethoven.
That's what you heard? That sounds like a Zoom blip.
I need a shot of rhythm and blues, so.
On that note, just before we leave, everyone, we've kind of shrunk our audience, but Barrett has been inspirational to me in getting me onto this theme of the neoliberal university. And because I work for a very dysfunctional one, as I think he does and several of us do, I kind of come to the conclusion that the capitalist university, as we might also say it, has screwed education. And that also might be why people are a little dumb in America, because there's critical thinking going on. Lucky you when it's to be slightly more, I think, enlightened at this point in history. What's going on here is pretty bleak, I got to tell you, but we shall not despair. We're going to make it better. But so the next issue, which I'm looking at a due date for materials of all kinds. I'm very interested in all the hybrid genres, poetry, essays on the broken neoliberal university. Wendy Brown has an amazing recent book out on neoliberalism and what it's done to politics and what it's done to, basically to the nation. It's a good place to start, but I would really be interested in some poetry, some multimedia, some poetry videos, hybrids as creative as what all of you have been doing. That any of you who work for universities, and we're kind of looking at the last age of pretending that we're providing education. So, and it all goes back to capitalism. Russell's been commenting, and as has Janelle, on that connection. And anyway, so I'm looking forward to getting some good work. And Barrett has this brilliant idea, because I guess he's tested it already with your issue in the Hunan Normal Journal from China. The idea of having a kind of colloquium on Zoom where we discuss the issues and maybe present some papers. So
to develop work, yeah. I mean, to basically to road test, works that are not necessarily. I'm not thinking so much about creative works here, but more like analytical works. Works about the politics of the moment.
Yeah.
But to really run those in front of your peers and get strong feedback, and then develop the essays out of that. So develop a conversation, and then intensify your perspective within the framework of talking to other people and hearing their angles. That's what I'd sort of like to do. So something like a virtual seminar out of which some of the published work could come. But I think your idea also is that other work would be, creative and wouldn't be subject to that kind of thing, right? So,
well, actually, creative work might be very inspired. I do a lot of research in my creative work, and might be inspired by those conversations, or maybe we might start it even as a reading group. We might, want to read the Wendy Brown book and consider its implications for education in America. And whether you're associated with the university or not, if you have family, if you have, you know, friends, you know, this is going to affect everybody. And we're on a very slippery downward slope, kind of like one of those super slides in New Jersey or something. I mean, we're in big trouble. We're losing it. And we're watching right now, the COVID duration is a time when the universities are victimizing employees and students both, because I mean, what happened to CUNY was they, before there was any indication that there would be less registration or anything, they gave a 25% cutback from the state to the 17 CUNY campuses. That was back in March.
Oh no.
You know, before, I mean, they had no clue what the effect of COVID would be on on the fall semester. So this is the excuse. I mean, this has got to be the neoliberal establishment.
Well, here's a really great example. In my own home unit, without knowing what the larger implications were going to be, everyone was told to produce a 5% and a 10% cut budget. Okay, and that may not be necessary. Enrollment could be good, state funds could be okay. But what you've then done is you've shown the admins where the cuts can come. You've actually done all the work for them, so that when they want to go find something that they can cut back on, you've laid it out on a platter.
And petty administrators are running around like chairs and deans, you know, exactly, you know, trying to, you know, do whatever the, you know, the gods, the neoliberal gods say, and exactly. But at CUNY it was 25%, and people, some of the people who have been on this, you know, this event tonight have lost jobs. Have, you know, it's mind-boggling, and it's got to stop. We have to address. I mean, you know, we have to keep fighting, and I tell my colleagues that, but they're not really into that.
So we're looking at appropriate scale of the fight here. It's the fight that works at the level that we are the fighters.
Yeah.
You know, it's an appropriate scale.
So,
it'll go out, irradiate in orbs that are measured, you know, and that'll be appropriate.
or measured or ignored, but
Measured orbs.
Carla, did you want to say something?
So, yeah, so one of my concerns is that we are so involved in sort of defending and critiquing and being frustrated by what we can't even defend, that it's very hard to put together an image of the university that isn't only predicated on what was and that no longer exists. And that, like, that's a big, you know, as I get to the point where I think I'm, you know, I may not be working in a university in 2, 3, 4 years, something like that. I'm thinking about that more and more with concern.
Yeah. And will your son and your son's brethren and your grandchildren have opportunities? You know, no, they won't. Not the same kind of opportunities that we have.
Right, but it seems that there could be value in trying to define or describe the opportunities that one wants for people in the future, that isn't about just one's own imagination of what had come before. That there's something else that needs to occur in order to push back against the logic that is taking it over.
Well, I'd love you to write something about that in whatever form.
It would be very painful and difficult to do.
Dialogue. One of your dialogues. You know, that's a good philosophical form, and that maybe a dialogue would be a great place to air that, as you just did with your dialogue with Barrett. Yeah, and we can't let this issue shut down. We have to keep the issue
alive,
out and on the internet. and we have to, you know, fight back with our words because we have. You know,
Absolutely.
So, well, everyone, thank you. And thank you to Dudrick so much for helping me once again manage Zoom. We did good, and.
Thank you.
So, well,
Thank
everyone.
you, Laura, for everything, and thanks to
It was
everybody.
awesome, so beautiful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
You, Leanne, and Russell.
Bye, Leanne. Bye, Leanne.
Wonderful to see you all.
Yeah, good to hear you talk.
Thank you. Same
like
for
it.
all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good night, all. Or day, bye.
Time is abstract.
Duration. Endure.
Thanks, Lynn.